In today's video, I'm going to talk about the reaction system in Baldur's Gate 3, what reactions are, how they're currently implemented, and of course what will be the best way for this system to be implemented in Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like this is a fairly important discussion to have, especially now in early access, because we're not really sure what Larian is going to do, and there's still time for them to gather feedback and test things out. Just a little heads up, I am a little sick while recording this, so I will likely sound a little different today. I do want to point out that Larian has said that they are still working on the reaction system, so what we have now as of patch 6 doesn't necessarily represent the future. For more Baldur's Gate 3 content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and also consider joining the community Discord server, where you can also put your feedback in the EA feedback channel. Link to that will be below. Let's jump right in. I'll start off with talking about what reactions are, because it can be a fairly confusing concept and mechanic if you don't play a ton of CRPGs, or if you don't have an understanding of the D&D rules and mechanics. If you want to skip this part, I am leaving chapter markers below. Generally speaking, in a round of combat, each participant gets to use an action, a bonus action, and a reaction. Your action is typically the main thing that you do, whether it be a spell or martial attack or using disengage and so on. Your bonus action allows you to do things such as drink a potion, hide, use your offhand weapon to attack, and also of course use an array of class-specific abilities such as the Ranger's Hunter's Mark, a Warlock's Hex, Druid's Wild Shape ability, and so on. A reaction is used very differently than actions and bonus actions because a reaction is an instant response to a trigger of some kind. So with an action and a bonus action, you can for the most part use those at will on your turn, while a reaction requires something to happen before it's able to occur. A reaction also differs because it can be used at any time during a round of combat, meaning many times your reaction will be used on an opponent's turn and vice versa. The most common example of a reaction is an opportunity attack. If you're within melee reach of an opponent and that opponent decides to just walk away from you, assuming that your character has a melee weapon equipped, you get to take a swing at that opponent. The trigger is the opponent turning their back to you to move away, and your reaction is the melee attack. You're basically taking advantage of your opponent's lack of battlefield awareness. You're reacting. Now, of course, if the opponent decided to use the disengage action before moving away, you would have not had the reaction trigger. It's also important to note that you can only do one reaction per round, so if you use your reaction with an opportunity attack, if another enemy decides to turn their back on you and walk away without using disengage, you will not get a reaction. Other examples of reactions currently in the game include Hellish Rebuke, which if you cast this spell, it's as simple as the next time you take damage, you use your reaction to surround your attacker in hellish flames, dealing fire damage. If you toggle on Hellish Rebuke, the trigger is simply an enemy doing damage to you, and your reaction to that is to surround them in flames. Keep in mind though that some reactions like Hellish Rebuke cost more than just your reaction. Hellish Rebuke also costs a level 2 spell slot, and therefore its use is limited. Another example is the Battlemaster's Riposte, which allows you to deal damage to an enemy that misses a melee swing on you. So the enemy's miss is the trigger here, and your reaction is to strike at them. Riposte, like Hellish Rebuke, also costs more than just your reaction. It will use up one of your Battlemaster's superiority dice. Since there's not a lot of reactions currently in Baldur's Gate 3's early access as of patch 6, and also considering that reactions are highly situational, many players might not even really notice the system that much as of now. But when the full game comes out, there will likely be many more reactions, and the reaction system will become much more noticeable to the average player. Therefore, we really want Larian to get it right. Before I talk about how reactions should be implemented, or how I think they should be implemented, to give some more context, here are a few reactions that are not in the game yet, but I would say are likely to come. One of the most notable missing ones is Shield. Shield is a reaction spell that gives you a +5 bonus to your armor class until the start of your next turn, and it also counters Magic Missile. So if you get hit by an attack or magic missile, you can react by boosting your armor class for an entire round. And if it's a magic missile attack, you can straight up counter it. It's a very powerful level 1 spell, and if you have it at your disposal, you will likely be using it quite often. Counterspell is a reaction spell that allows you to do an ability check to interrupt an enemy casting a spell on you. So the trigger is an enemy casting a spell at you, and your reaction is to attempt an ability check to possibly make the enemy's spell fail. Featherfall is a spell that is already in the game, but in 5th edition it can also be used as a reaction. The trigger would be you getting knocked off a ledge, and your reaction is to cast Featherfall, saving you from taking fall damage or perhaps even saving you from a certain death. And there's a host of other reactions that I'm not even mentioning here. So how are reactions currently implemented in early access? If you take a look at the bottom right of your screen, you can see a little box with a bunch of circles. This is partly your reaction box, but Larian has also included some non-reaction features that you can toggle on and off, such as the non-lethal attack. With Lae'zel, you can see that I have 2 reactions at my disposal, Attack of Opportunity, which everybody has, and Riposte. With Will, I also have 2 reactions, Attack of Opportunity and Hellish Rebuke. You can toggle these on or off with a simple click. If reactions are toggled on, the game will automatically use it if it's triggered. So if an enemy walks away from Lae'zel without using Disengage, the game automatically has Lae'zel do an Attack of Opportunity, using up her reaction for that round. If you have more than one reaction toggled on, whatever is triggered first will be the one that is used for that round, if any are triggered at all. The problem with this current system, and keep in mind that Larian may already have plans on changing it, is that your reaction will either go off automatically or they don't go off at all. You basically have to know before a round of combat begins what reactions you want to possibly use and toggle those ones on. That's a very hard decision to make because combat situations are very unpredictable. With this current system, you're no longer really reacting, you're guessing. Now, if the only reaction that you have in your arsenal is Attack of Opportunity, sure, it's not really that big of a deal, just leave it toggled on. But when you have multiple reactions, some of which cost resources and can be quite powerful, you want more control over their use. If Shield comes to the game, you may want to have it available to react with if you deem necessary, but knowing that if you toggle it on, it will go off automatically when any trigger occurs, it can really make you not want to use it at all. Hellish Rebuke also falls into that category. Currently in the game, you have to precast Hellish Rebuke using up your level 2 spell slot, and then you can toggle it on or off to determine if you want to give it the possibility of triggering. The first problem with that is that you are precasting it and giving up that level 2 spell slot before anything even occurs. That's like going on Craigslist and sending someone your money before you meet with them and get what you paid for. Here's a quick example. Let's say you cast Hellish Rebuke and turn it on with the intent of having it at the ready in case the boss attacks you. In your head, you have determined that you're willing to sacrifice that level 2 spell slot and your reaction to deal that great 3d10 fire damage to the boss. Well, unfortunately, after you toggle it on, a goblin with 2 hit points decides to attack you, so say goodbye to Hellish Rebuke, but I guess it's kinda cool to give a goblin a glorious death. The same thing applies to Lae'zel's Riposte. If it costs your reaction and a superiority die, you want it ready, but you don't want it to go off on a trigger that's not worthy of that superiority die. On top of not being in control of when you want reactions to actually be used, we also have to keep in mind that if you have more than one reaction at the ready, you're at the game's mercy as to which one could possibly be used in that round of combat. Whatever one goes off first, that's it for that round. So what is the solution to this problem? The easiest solution, in my opinion, is to make it so that when something triggers a possible reaction, the game should then offer you the choice in that specific moment as to whether or not you want to use your reaction. Nothing goes off automatically. This would of course require the game to pause, and something would have to pop up in some way, shape, or form, allowing you to make that decision. A good example of this is in the game Stadia. If something triggers a reaction, a box pops up and you say yes, I want to use it, or no, and it works great in Stadia. But we do got to keep in mind that Stadia is different than Baldur's Gate 3. Stadia is a bit more on the hardcore side, and it's not going to, nor is it even meant to, appeal to as wide of an audience as Baldur's Gate 3 is. If Larian is making a game that is taking likely 6+ years of development with an insane budget, they do have to find ways to bring D&D mechanics to an audience that doesn't know much or even care for D&D. There has to be some mainstream appeal to this game, whether you like it or not. Pop-up boxes during combat don't necessarily fall into that category. I'm honestly not sure whether or not this would be something that would be loved or rejected by your average Baldur's Gate 3 gamer. Even if it makes sense, it might make the game feel a little bit more spreadsheety versus feeling like a video game to some players. Also keep in mind that having triggers pause combat would technically slow down combat a little bit, and a common complaint at the moment seems to be that combat, especially in larger battles, is already a bit too slow. So I would say that there is a chance that Larian is choosing not to use a pop-up system, and they might stay with this automatic system, or maybe they have something else in mind. But how can we make everybody happy? Well, that's of course impossible, but I would encourage Larian to try some form of pause pop-up reaction system just to see how it goes. I personally don't need everything to be right out of the book. I prefer fun over sticking to a rule written on a dusty page, but I do want things to make sense, and it doesn't feel like it really does right now. The great thing is that we're in early access, so it's the perfect time to try things and see how players react. I'm even inclined to believe that if Larian could make this system visually appealing, as opposed to just a text pop-up box, this system could end up being liked around the board. Instead of an ugly pop-up text box like in Stadia, maybe the reaction icons that you see in the bottom right could become larger when something triggers one, and then you simply click on the icon to confirm that you want to use it. We don't even need necessarily text in this situation. And then maybe there's a cool sound effect when it first pops up, and cool animations when you confirm. Let's make it fun, and I think something like this will have a chance of being liked by most players. Another thing that Larian could consider is offering some sort of hybrid system where you can still toggle on and off reactions, but the ones that you toggle off will not pause the game and ask you if you want to use them, only the ones that you choose to have active. And this will limit the amount of pauses during combat when you know that you don't want to use certain reactions. And of course, another possible solution, if this does in fact end up being divisive, is maybe just make it an optional setting where you can turn on or off pop-up reactions. Players who want them to be automatic, sure, go for it. And players who want to have full control, you got the option to. Please let me know your thoughts below in the video comments, and like I said, feel free to join the Discord server. Link to that is in the video's description and in the pinned comment. We all want Baldur's Gate 3 to be the best game that it can possibly be, and feedback is of course the best path to take for making that actually come true. I'm not going to switch over to my actual camera on my face like I typically do. Like I said, I'm not really feeling too good right now. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on another video very soon.